On behalf of Mark's family, I'd like to thank you all for being here to celebrate Mark's life, his legacy, and to support his family and loved ones. I had the honor of being Mark's chaplain with Circle of Life. It was very brief, but the day that I walked into his home and he was surrounded by people who I could visibly see loved him, but I could also physically experience it. It was tangible. It was just a beautiful thing to see, and I am honored to be doing this today. There's no doubt Mark made impact on loved ones, but he also made an indelible impact on his community. And that's why we gather today, to remember him, to honor him, and to celebrate his life. I'd like to read a brief poem that may bring encouragement to some, and then we will move forward. For this is who we are, a people of the promise, a people shaped in the image of God, whose very being generates all the joy in the universe, yet who also weeps and grieves in its brokenness. So we, your children, are also at liberty to lament our losses, even as we simultaneously rejoice in the hope of their coming restoration. Let me learn now, O Lord, to do this as naturally as the inhale and exhale of a single breath. To breathe out sorrow, to breathe in joy, to breathe out lament, to breathe in hope, to breathe out sorrow, to breathe in joy, to breathe out pain, to breathe in comfort, to breathe out joy. In one hand, I grasp the burden of my grief, while with the other, I reach for the hope of grief's redemption. And here, between the two tensions, between what was and what will be, in the very is of now, let my heart be surprised by, shaped by, warmed by, remade by the same joy that forever wells within and radiates from your heart, O God. Amen. If you all would join me in prayer before people start coming up to talk about their love for Mark. Oh, Father God, I first praise you for who you are, for all that you do for us. God, for your majesty, your holiness, your righteousness. God, that we are even able to communicate with the creator of the universe. I pray we never take that for granted. God, I ask for your ministry of peace and comfort would just flow in this room and in the hearts and lives of everyone who loves this man. God, I pray that our grief would one day be able to turn into joy and hope. But in these moments, give us the ability, the grace, the empathy to love on folks as they're hurting. God, let this be a celebration of his life and also a time to glorify you and who you are. I ask all these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Hello, I want to thank you all for being here at the Boys and Girls Club, an organization and a place near and dear to Mark's heart. Before we get into the celebration of Mark's life, I want to briefly touch on Mark's cancer journey. I know it looks like I have a book here, but really it's just size 50 font, so I don't have to use my glasses. So I really won't be that long. Mark was a model of healthy living, and probably the last person you would ever guess this would happen to, right? But cancer doesn't care. He journaled all the ups and downs of his cancer journey, which, for those of you who don't know, began November of 2021. He had a mountain bike mishap, not the first time, And that fall resulted in several cuts and bruises. And there was one small cut on the inside of his left knee that just wouldn't heal completely. The dermatologist didn't think it was anything, but, just to be concerned about. But for our peace of mind, he did a biopsy. Late one afternoon, after one of our mega bike rides, we were relaxing on the porch when the phone rang. It was the dermatologist. He said, "Mark, I'm completely shocked. This is just bad luck. It's cancer, the worst kind. It's melanoma, and you need surgery right away, immediately." Mark hung up the phone. He sat quietly for a few moments, and he said, "All right, I'll have that surgery. I'll be back on my bike in 3 weeks." He remained optimistic throughout it all. The surgeries, the treatments, the life-threatening side effects. And once those side effects subsided, he was back on that bike again and working and golfing and working out 6 days a week, hopeful and feeling healthy again. We even took a 4th of July trip last summer to Columbus, Ohio to see his folks and family. But unfortunately, the beast known as cancer is unpredictable, and despite the best medical care available, things were deteriorating. Just a few weeks before he passed, he said, "Rachel, the timing of this thing is just terrible." I looked at him and I said, "Well, of course, it's all terrible." And he said, "No, it's tax time is coming, and I don't want to leave you to deal with the taxes by yourself." Like, that was just so Mark, right? And then it came time for Circle of Life Hospice to take over his care. And by the way, those people are angels, absolute angels. They helped us fulfill his wish of passing away at home with family around him. Mark was beyond wonderful. Great husband and father, the best sense of humor, always put others first. And he was hands down the strongest person I've ever known. I could go on for days about how great he was, but Mark, he would want me to wrap this up. I was truly blessed to be his wife. That has been so difficult to lose him, but I do take comfort knowing that he is at peace and he is not suffering. And whenever I look at our 2 sons, I see Mark, and I hear his laugh through them. In his journal, Mark wrote, "I am hoping for a miracle, but planning for the probable. I feel so blessed to have lived the life I have. Wonderful wife, kids, and family and friends. I have always tried to do the right thing with people and business, and I have no regrets when I have to answer to St. Peter," unquote. Thank you all for being here.
I'm going to first read a letter from my dad. I know he really wanted to be here today. And same with my mom. Just with their health, they weren't able to make it. So this is from my dad. Mark was our firstborn child, and I remember so well seeing him for the first time with his massive black hair. His mother and I thought he was the most handsome child we'd ever seen. Mark was always a high achiever, not surprising. In school, he was a crossing guard in elementary school and took his job very seriously. And I'm so glad my dad put that in here because I remember seeing Mark at the crossing guard when I went to school for the first time. And he was all business, even with his brother. In high school, Mark played football, baseball, and basketball. He was selected to go to Boy State at Bowling Green University, which strongly affected his choice of which college he would attend. Mark was often seen driving around town in his red Plymouth Horizon, packed with his school friends, which, by the way, Matt and I both drove that car too, packed our friends in it. Don't know how that car survived all the years of 3 boys driving it, but it did. But Mark was well known for the red Horizon. Mark and I shared a love for biking. When Mark was a youngster, we would often ride our bikes around town, and later in life on those wonderful bike trails in Bentonville. I still treasure those rides. Mark wasn't only a wonderful son, husband and father, he was a caring, generous human being. His mother and I were so proud of the man he had become. In his poem, A Psalm of Life, Henry Longfellow wrote, "Lives of great men all around us, we can make our lives sublime, and, departing, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time." Mark has left many footprints on the sands of time, and we have all been enriched by them. May he rest in peace, Dad. Although we're here today with heavy hearts, we're also here to celebrate the life Mark lived and the meaningful relationships he developed and nurtured throughout his life. When I think about the collective impact Mark had on his family, his friends, his colleagues, his community, it adds up to a pretty impressive legacy. As a beloved brother, a son, an uncle, a father, and a husband, Mark set the bar high. Growing up in his shadow, I have to confess, he didn't make it easy on me, and my brother Matt too. He was an A student, a strong athlete, a natural leader, a decent-looking guy, and just about everyone liked him. I'm sure you've all heard the famous Michael Jordan phrase, "I want to be like Mike." Well, the truth is, I wanted to be like Mark. And even though I tried really hard to follow in his footsteps, I really struggled to excel in all the same ways he did. Once I realized it was impossible to actually be like him, being his younger brother got a little bit less stressful. Mark was a protector. He always had my back. I knew I could count on him when I needed him most. I confided in Mark about nearly every tough decision I've made in my life. And he pretty much always gave me sound advice, even if I wasn't really asking for it. Mark was also a teacher, which is definitely a trait he got from our dad, who taught high school and college for more than 40 years. One of my favorite stories my mom used to tell me about Mark when I was around 1 and Mark was 3. There's a picture of the two of us standing up against a couch in our family room, and he's showing me how to run a Matchbox car across the cushions and make car noises. She would say how I couldn't even walk yet, but Mark would lift me up and prop me against the couch and teach me how to play with cars. She'd talk about how excited he was to have a little brother and how he wanted to teach me everything so he had someone to play with. Mark's teachings have continued throughout my entire life. Mark helped me learn to ride a bike, swim, climb trees, build forts, play basketball, throw a football, shoot a basketball, and swing a golf club. Growing up on a farm with plenty of chores to do, our dad didn't really have the opportunity to get involved in athletics and pass that down to us. So I mostly learned about sports through Mark. He just happened to be a natural at everything. These early years, playing nearly every sport possible helped me form a passion for sports, which fueled my desire to pursue a career in working in professional sports. And if it wasn't for Mark encouraging me to play catch with him or shoot hoops with him, I'm not sure I would have ever developed that passion. Later in life, he taught me about things like home ownership, financial planning, emotional intelligence, and more than I ever wanted to know about the finer details of grilling. It was never a burden to him to help me, and I was always glad to get his instructions and advice. Mark made it easy to like him. He was a person with high integrity and had a strong moral compass, two more fabulous traits he got from our parents. He wanted to make people feel comfortable, and he loved to make people laugh. Whether he was telling a story or a corny joke, he put you at ease because he truly cared about people and building relationships with them. Mark was a hard worker. He took great pride in his work, clearly starting from an early age with being that crossing guard. He was self-motivated and driven to succeed. He always tried to set a good example and do the right thing. He did his best to treat people with honesty, fairness, and respect. With those qualities, it's not surprising he had success in the business world. Even though he held high-level leadership positions, when he and I would talk about work, he never talked about his success. He would talk about how much he enjoyed working with his team, and he would tell me stories about some of the funny things that happened to him and his colleagues. What I didn't know was how strong his work relationships were and the profound impact he had on so many colleagues until I read Jim Slumka's post on LinkedIn after Mark passed. Dozens of Mark's former coworkers wrote incredibly kind and heartfelt messages about working with him, and I wanted to share a couple of those with him. a couple of those with you guys. Mark was a great friend, a great mentor, a great leader. I learned a lot from Mark, working on his team for years and soaking in all the great leadership lessons. He changed the trajectory of my career with his honest and clear feedback. He was a human of the greatest kind, always putting others first, never seeking credit, values-led and driven by kindness. I enjoyed every conversation over the years and hold a handwritten letter he sent me full of advice very close. I will read it often. Another colleague said, Mark was one of the most humble, down-to-earth persons one will ever meet. Mark radiated kindness, goodness, respect, and his positive energy was infectious. And a third wrote, Mark became a quick friend to many, and I count myself so incredibly lucky to have worked for him and learned from him. He was brilliant, respected, and led with purpose, vision, humility, and compassion. He was a culture builder who made time for everybody and made you feel heard and appreciated. He truly valued everyone's contribution and made you feel unstoppable. There were many more comments just like these, and I want to thank you all who took the time to share your fond memories of Mark. It was inspiring and comforting to learn more about Mark's work relationships and the lasting impact he had on so many people. Mark was a giver. He gave freely of his time, his knowledge, his friendship, and his love. He was genuine in how he cared for people and the causes that were important to him. Standing here in this very gym that bears his and Rachel's name is a perfect example of Mark's generosity and selflessness. He was so passionate about working with the Boys and Girls Club and helping these kids learn different life skills. He was a hands-on in his involvement, teaching kids how to shoot a basketball, throw a football, or prepare for an interview, just like he taught me when we were kids. He was also hands-on in raising funds for this important cause, attending many charitable events with Rachel, and spreading the word about the good work happening here at the Boys and Girls Club. We got to visit this gym for the first time a couple of weeks ago with Mark's sons, Mike and Jordan, my brother Matt, my wife Stacy, and my daughters Mackenzie and Madison, and see Mark and Rachel's names above the door out there. It was pretty freaking cool. There was a youth girls basketball game in progress at the time when we walked in the gym, and it made me so proud and honored to see this recognition from Mark and Rachel's many contributions to this very worthy organization. Matt and Drew and the other members of the Boys and Girls Club here today, thank you for this amazing tribute. More than anything, Mark was a family man. He loved his life with Rachel, Mike, and Jordan. He was so proud of the young men Mike and Jordan had become. And he cherished his opportunities to spend time with them, whether it was on the golf course, the bike trail, playing cards, or just working out together. He adored Rachel and always tried to impress her with his wittiness and self-proclaimed gourmet cooking. They were best friends and had a long, loving, happy relationship that endured multiple moves across the U.S. and Canada. To my parents, he was the firstborn and the gold standard, and Mark tried to spend nearly every Christmas with them, carrying on a tradition my folks started when we would visit our grandparents in Massachusetts almost every year growing up. I know how proud of Mark my parents are, and they absolutely loved every minute they got to spend with Mark, Rachel, and the boys, playing cards or board games and hanging out together at their condo in Florida. To my wife, Stacy, and my girls, Kenzie and Maddie, Mark was a character. He had a special connection with them. My girls adored him, and he felt the same way about them. Mark would light up when he'd tell me that he got a text from one of them or got a chance to talk with them one-on-one. He would always say how much he enjoyed their company and how impressed he was with the kind-hearted, personable young ladies they become. Of course, he didn't miss an opportunity to share a little Mark Malo wisdom with them when he got the chance. Stacy would share with me how much she enjoyed her thoughtful conversations with Mark and truly valued his perspectives on relationships, work, and life in general. To my brother Matt and me, he was our big brother, our North Star. You couldn't ask for a better big brother, friend, and role model than Mark. When the three of us were together, we shared stories, laughed a lot, challenged each other, and usually found some way to be competitive, either on the golf course, behind the grill, or at the ping pong table. I will never forget these special moments between the three of us. Seeing everyone here today, it's pretty obvious what kind of impact Mark had on our lives. He formed amazing, meaningful relationships with many people. And I'd like to personally thank those of you who have been so kind, generous, and supportive to our family over these past few weeks. We will all cherish the memories we have with Mark and hold them close. He created quite a legacy for his family, and we're all better people for knowing him. And I want to close on a story about Mark. So when I was a sophomore in college, I had a knock on my door at my apartment at Ohio State, and I opened the door, and there's a giant man standing there, about 6'4", 250 pounds. And he says, "Are you Mike Malo?" And I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "I heard you've been messing with my girlfriend." And I'm thinking to myself, what have I gotten myself into? and my mind's racing because I'm thinking, all right, what girl did I meet at the bar that I kissed or something like that? And I said, the only thing that came out of my mouth was, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And he grabs me by the shirt, and he pulls me out into the hallway, and he says, "I got a problem with you." And he starts to pull his hand back, and I'm thinking, man, this is going to hurt. And in the corner of my eye, I see something, and it's Mark. And he's standing in the hallway cracking up. And he had come down from Bowling Green with this friend of his that I had not met before to surprise me, kind of impromptu. And surprise me, he did. After I changed my underwear, we had a good laugh about it. That was Mark. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for being here today. My name is Matt, and I'm the youngest of the 3 Malo boys. Mike kind of said a bunch of stuff that I was gonna mention, but just to reiterate a couple things about my oldest brother, Mark. Being the youngest of 3 boys, if you have siblings of your own, a lot of times there's some tension or some fighting amongst the brothers. And as I look back on my childhood, I never really experienced that with Mike and Mark. They have always been supportive of me in basically all facets of my childhood, just to help me become a better person. And I thank them both for that. Mark especially, to Mike's point, he is a teacher, or was a teacher, and taught me a lot of things. One thing about Mark, we were 4 years apart, but you would never really know that. He always treated me just like a best friend, not a little brother. He was never ashamed to have me around. He would take me to his friend's house to lift weights when I was in high school. And we did a lot of things together, which I cherished. Then he went off to Bowling Green, and I thought that my time with him was going to be less. But that wasn't the case. He would call me up probably every 2 weeks and say, "Hey, why don't you come up to Bowling Green? Come visit with me. We'll go to a hockey game or a basketball game or hang out, whatever." And I just thought that was the best for, big brother, 4 years older than me, to want me to come and hang out with his friends in college. And I loved it. One of the things that Mark did at Bowling Green was he worked for Miller Lite. And we got to drive around in a beer truck and deliver cakes to all the parties. So we got to meet a lot of people, and then Mark became involved in a fraternity, Sigma Chi, and as you can imagine, he ended up being president of that fraternity. And we had a lot of good parties up there at Bowling Green. Yeah, they were great times. One of the things also being a teacher, I never really got into golf that much, but to Mark it was very important. and he's very competitive about it. So I can't remember exactly when it was. I was just leaving my senior year of high school maybe, and Mark gives me his old set of golf clubs, buys me new shoes, and says, "I'm going to teach you how to play golf, Matt." And I said, "I'm not really into it. It's just not my game." And he goes, "Matt," "it's not just about playing golf with me and getting out and enjoying the camaraderie and the beauty of the course, but it's something that you're going to want to learn just from a business perspective." So I learned how to play golf, not very well, but in retrospect, those little bits of advice like that he would give people goes a long way, because it did help me out later on in my professional career. When you're out at business trips and with colleagues, you're typically not playing pickleball or basketball. You're on a golf course, or that's where the meetings are. And if I didn't have him to make me realize that and to teach me that, and that's just one example. I mean, I could go on and on and on about the things that he's taught me that made us better people and helped us out in life. He obviously has touched your lives in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here today. Just to let you know that however he did, it was genuine. He is the most genuine individual I've ever met. And I just hope that we all find peace and comfort in his treasured memories. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Michael Malo. I'm Mark Malo's eldest son. A lot of people were lucky to get to know him the 58 years he was here. It's clear that he made a lasting impression on a lot of people. Remarkable leader in the workplace, inspiring role model, impacting the community, a trustworthy friend, credible husband, brother, father, and most apparent to me, my hero. My dad never told me how to live. He lived and let me watch him do it. He always led by his actions, always knew the right words to say, made you want to be a better person, and would always be there for you when you needed it. He also taught me a lot of things. He taught me how to ride a bike, drive a stick shift, taught me how to throw a football and shoot a basketball as well. He taught me how to golf, although anyone who saw him chipping probably knows they shouldn't be doing that, teaching anyone that. One of the best things about him was that he was always present for all of us. His drive, his motivation in life was simple: be a good person and do what he thinks is right. It's kind of funny looking back, some of the little things too, like, how determined he was to check off his to-do list. He'd make a big breakfast, on a Saturday morning, do yard work, wash the cars, get a lift in, then come back from a 20-mile bike ride, asking what we wanted for dinner to cook on the grill that evening. And then we usually played, card games and board games and had some laughs. But also, my dad was also a very humble guy. So in good fun, I thought it'd be kind of nice to list just a few of his accomplishments that maybe some people don't know from here today. Number one, he actually had 3 hole-in-ones in his life, and he had friends there to witness it, so it wasn't mini golf or anything. He absolutely loved playing movies and shows. He even got his pilot license, which really scared the hell out of my mom during that process of flying by planes. And he was also a multi-sport athlete, we touched on, playing baseball, basketball, and football. And he actually was self-proclaimed, his nickname in high school basketball team was the Microwave. And if you asked him why, he'd say, because I would heat up so fast whenever all in all, he was just an amazing person. When he walked in the room, everything was brighter. Our hearts are obviously touched and crushed that we're going to miss him very much. But we have a good family with us. My mom's really strong. And I'm just grateful we have a loving, supporting family here, friends, and got to meet a lot of his great friends, yesterday and today. And I appreciate you guys all being here. Thank you to the Boys and Girls Club for allowing us to celebrate him here. As this organization had a very special place in his heart. And, there's a lot more memories we wanted to share with him. But I know he's up there smiling, looking down at us. So rest in peace, Dad. I love you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jordan. I'm the second favorite. I'm hearing a lot of mentions of biking and weightlifting and golfing, by the way. um, Thank you all for being here. This font's kind of small, so bear with me. It's truly been a pleasure meeting and reconnecting with all you guys, all the ones that my dad held close to his heart. I want to say another big thank you to all the kind words that were already said before. I doubt I can do much better than those. And to the Boys and Girls Club, which we all know he's very proud of. And it's very special seeing my parents' name right there. It's been 18 days since my dad's passed. Every day we miss him more. 18 more days we could have spent with each other, laughing, crying, sharing corny jokes, playing card games, watching another World War II documentary on the History Channel. I'm pretty sure you've seen every one of them twice. It didn't matter what we were doing. What mattered was we were cherishing every moment. I'm so thankful we had the time together, for all the time we had together. I'm thankful we were always close. I'm thankful for our loving and supportive friends and family. My dad's always been a man whose stature fit his character, strong, unyielding, open, accepting, happy, a walking testament of how one should act. He was the greatest role model, carved from good deeds and loving actions. One who I'm sure inspired every one of us in this room to be just a bit better. As you know, my dad was a very charitable man, probably as you could see. Many of his selfless acts have already been recognized today. I thought maybe I would share another story that I think encapsulates his good nature. One time when he was in a grocery store, he overheard a young couple debating if they should sacrifice some of the food in their grocery cart to buy a heater for their freezing apartment. And without even a second thought, my dad immediately stepped in and offered to purchase the heater for the struggling couple, not taking no for an answer. And he told no one about it, except for me. And he said no one set to decide between warmth and food. I think this story shows he truly cared for others, even strangers. He went out of his way to help of his own volition. I'm sure most of us would want to grab our groceries and get home. I know I would. But my dad found a way to give, even in the most mundane of places. I was fortunate enough to talk to my dad and share some of our favorite memories together. He told me he always loved coaching me in the various sports teams I played on. He loved working out together, hanging out by the grill, where he spoiled me with his cooking way too much. He was a great chef, a greater dad, family and friend. He'll be sorely missed. He's the best dad we could ever ask for. I love you, and rest in peace.
Hi, everybody. My name's Karen Stuckey. I had the pleasure of volunteering with Mark at the Boys and Girls Club and also in support of the Network of Executive Women. I'll be really brief because, as Rachel pointed out, Mark would be not happy if we weren't brief. So there are so many words. You've heard so many words about Mark, and I'll choose just two. It's hard because there's so many to choose from, but as I think about Mark, one would be commitment, and the other would be servant. And from a commitment perspective, most of us on the board have our at-bat in leadership. That's what nonprofit's all about, right? So I was moving into the leadership role as president, and I asked to sit down with and have a chat with each of the board members, and Mark was about a year into his board service. And just asked for his observations and suggestions and sent him in advance of a coffee chat just some prompts, questions, a dozen or so questions, and said, any of them that, spur you to want to talk, please, we can chat about this or none of this. So I know you're not surprised. Mark shows up, 12 questions, handwritten, completely filled out, every single question. It was like a blueprint for if you want to be successful in this role, this is what I would do. You're in. Okay, fast forward a couple of years, and Mark takes charge of recruiting Matt, our CEO, with the same thoughtful detail, with the same focus on communication, with the same energy of making sure that every single board member knew exactly all the candidates he'd looked at, why, what was behind that, and he made a fabulous choice, as you can all see. So here then, a couple years later, I'm in the past chair position. Nick was rolling off. I was rolling off past chair. And the team was strongly advocating for Mark to move into the president role. And he asked me to have coffee, so we chatted. And he said, I hesitate. I love this organization, but I hesitate to sign on to anything I can't put 100% into. So I was pretty persistent. I said, well, you've already hired your CEO. Oh my gosh, I mean, like, this is, we've got things kind of come down. You need to do it. So Mark didn't put in 100%. He didn't put in 200%. He put in 300, 400, 500%. So when he commits to something, like, you can't even explain how much he puts into these things. So someday in the very near future, when we all look up, not a dictionary, but some sort of a digital visual aid for words we don't know how to describe, I know no one in this room would be surprised if you look up servant leader, and what pops up is a video of Mark Malo's greatest hits, because it'll be a blueprint for how to be great as a servant leader. And I will savor every opportunity I had to work with and beside Mark, and I think I can speak for many in this room, that he will leave a lasting impression on us for years to come. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Evan Crawford. I got the privilege of working with Mark twice in my career at Clorox. And a couple of stories that Mark would never tell anyone, I thought I would tell you all. Because of his humility and his care of people, he was always incredibly kind to me. When I first started working for him on the Sam's Club team, he called me into his office for a one-on-one, and I think I might have been 23 or 24 years old, and he said, Evan, do you have a 401k? And I said, I don't even know what that means. And he said, well, you need to have a 401k, and we offer it here, and I'm going to help you get it started. And so he called on speakerphone, the 800 number, went through all the prompts, all the mechanical voices, and asked me all the questions, and basically went through step by step and got me set up on a 401k. And he said, let's put in the base percentage, and then as you go, you put in more and more and more. And by the time I got married, I was putting in the max of what I could put in. And but that was so kind. That had nothing to do with our workday. That had nothing to do with even what we were doing as a business. It had to do with me as a 24-year-old young professional and helping me learn how to succeed for the rest of my business career. That was one of my first interactions with Mark. One of my last interactions with Mark was him preparing a presentation to share here at the Boys and Girls Club. And he came down with his PowerPoint presentation and all of his little notes and all his slides that he had done, and he said, Evan, I want to go over this with you. By this time, this was my second time to work for him, and I had been with the company about 14 years. So we had quite a long history. And he said, I want to share on servant leadership. What do you think? And I said, well, I think you're perfect for it. And he said, well, I was trying to think of a leader that I could speak about as an example. And the only leader that I could think about sharing about is Jesus Christ. And I said, wow, that's incredible. And he said, well, he's the only leader that I know that models servant leadership the best. And I said, well, then you should speak about it. And I said, Mark, I think you do a really great job emulating that yourself. And he was like, I'm not going to talk about that. In his way, he would not. But I loved that he had diligently searched for the best example that he could find. I don't know what his talk ended up being, but we sat there and went over every slide and talked about all the points of the things that he wanted to share. And I felt so grateful and honored that he wanted to go over that with me. Also remembering that I was the 24-year-old kid that didn't even know what 401k meant, and that years later we came back and we worked on that presentation together. And knowing that now, fast forward all these years, his legacy lives on here, and he emulates the servant leader. As Karen pointed out, as Jordan pointed out, he emulates the servant leader that hopefully all these other boys and girls will follow in his footsteps. Thank you.
My name's Tim Phillips. I grew up with Mark. We were in each other's weddings. I got the questions last night of what was Mark like growing up. And, you know, Mike and Matt, I grew up with them too. Mark was the brother that I never had. He taught me how to drive that stick shift in that red Horizon. As I grinded the gears, he's like, my dad's gonna kill us if you destroy this car. And we went through catechism together. We went through, we just went through every little piece of life, you know. But I thought I'd just share a story. You know, Mark liked to work out, right? A lot of weightlifting, and every time we'd talk, he'd be like, got 300. Like, great, man, that's awesome. Not me. I'm not there anymore. But I was there when we developed that passion for lifting weights. And my dad had bought this cheesy little bench for us. We were in 8th grade, and we decided it was time to start working out. And Mark and I were down in the basement. We pushed my grandmother's bed to the side, and it was the plastic sand-filled weights, and I'm lifting, and he comes over and he starts hitting my chest, like, you know, kind of doing this. I go, what are you doing? He goes, that's how you get stretch marks. We need to get stretch marks. Like, number one, that tickles, stop it. And from that day on, we pooled our money, and we went to the, one of our parents took us to the sporting goods store, and we bought a curling bar. And so we would share the curling bar. And that was Mark's kind of kickoff into working out and the weightlifting, and it just grew from there, obviously. But there's so many other stories. I was on the crossing guard. He was my captain, right? He took his job very seriously. Of course he was the captain, right? And I shared this story when the last mention, when he called me to tell me he was going into hospice. His goal was to make it to his birthday, and I got off the phone. And I told my wife, I go, he's gonna make it to his birthday. The little overachiever will always make his goal. He always has since we were in 3rd grade together. And you can just tell by the people in this room that he continued that legacy. So Mark, I love you. Those were our last words to each other. And I'll always cherish that. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Teresa Walsh, and I'm from Boys and Girls Clubs of America, the national organization. Hi, Rachel. And so something that you might not know about Mark is, watching everything he has done here at the local Boys and Girls Club has been incredible over the years. He is one of the kindest humans I've ever met, and he is absolutely the guy who will tell you the truth. So I knew when I got a call, he's like, let me just give you some coaching because your national organization needs to XYZ. I'm like, yeah, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. But not only has he impacted the local organization, there's been many occasions where, and Rachel's actually got to go to Washington, D.C. and be there with us, where we've asked Matt to come in and talk to our Board of Governors, and as you probably know, are made up of CEOs from around the world, and pretty incredible group. And you can see why we would call on him: authentic, gracious, matter of fact, very business oriented. And not only that, at opportunities with different times to tell the story at a national level. So not only has he impacted this community and thousands of young people over the years he's been here, he impacted the national organization, which is, 6 or 7 million kids. So I didn't want to let this moment go by and not recognize that. So thank you.
Good morning, I'm Brian Baldwin. I consider Mark a very dear friend, and I'm certainly going to miss him. Rachel, you're as strong as can be. My heart is compelling me to say a few words, but my emotions might not allow that. But anyway, a lot has been said about mountain biking, and so since I put a lot of grinding miles on together with Mark, I thought I would share a couple of anecdotes that you guys might find spiritually uplifting. So first and foremost, we did, Mike, you mentioned he's a high achiever. You don't know what high achievement is until you try to chase Mark on a mountain bike ride. There was no hill too high and there was no trail too long. Even if you ran out of battery on your e-mountain bike, we kept going, and that was pretty brutal. Mark always had his moral and ethical compass centered toward true north. However, his geographic GPS was not quite as good. I'll say this mildly, on more than a few occasions, I was baited into a 15-mile ride that turned into 22 or 23 miles. And at some point, I'm going, Mark, you know, we got to get back. You told me this was going to be 15 miles. I figured 16, 17, we're going on 22. I'm looking at the battery, and we're sitting up here on the border of Missouri. I go, this is not a good option. Anyway, he made me better. He made us better. The best analogy I can share with you about what it's like riding with Mark is if you picture a German Shepherd, that's Mark. If you picture a dachshund trying to chase the German Shepherd, that's Brian. So it was always pretty brutal. The other thing is he didn't have quite a good sense for who he was trying to teach mountain biking, although he was a good teacher. On a number of occasions, we would bring new folks out. Jordan knows I'm talking about him right now. On a few times we'd come out, we want to ride together, and hey, we're gonna, I'm gonna have my son come out, we're gonna ride together. On other occasions to be other people, and I go, Mark, we probably should do this trail and not that one. Oh, no, that's gonna be good, it's gonna be good. Well, we brutalized poor Jordan one day, and I'm just sitting there, Mark, we gotta slow down. No, he can make it. So always the achiever. I also had the opportunity to ride a different path with him, this path in battling cancer. When you ride as many miles and it's just the two of you out on a path out in the middle of Northwest Arkansas, you talk about everything. You talk about life, you talk about the afterlife, you talk about family, you talk about love. So we got to know each other really, really well. And then through the journey, Mark let me in on a lot of different things in his heart. I certainly fell in love with the man. And I know the fact that with as many people as are here, he had a similar impact on all of you. I got to say goodbye to my friend not too far from his last days. And like Mark would be, an achiever, a couple of us went over to visit with him, and he was not laying down. He was standing in the center hallway of his home, did not want to be laying down. Hey guys, come on in, let's sit. I thought we were going to have about 10 minutes with him because typically that was his, that's about as much energy as he could muster for any kind of communication. We sat there for 40 minutes talking about life and stuff and things like that. And I'll leave you with one thought about what I think about this man. And I shared this with him. I said, hey, Mark, I too, Michelle and I raised two boys. And I admire how you've raised your kids. I said, as I look at other men in my life, the bar that I set is for what I want my boys to emulate that human being. And I said, Mark, you have exceeded that. You fit that role for us. So I'm going to miss my friend. I love Mark, and thanks for letting me share a few of these thoughts with you.
I'd like to end the ceremony by reading a poem titled, Feel No Guilt in Laughter. Feel no guilt in laughter. He'd know how much you care. Feel no sorrow in a smile that he is not here to share. You cannot grieve forever. He would not want you to. He'd hope that you could carry on the way you always do. So talk about the good times and the way you showed you cared. The days you spent together, all the happiness you shared. Let memories surround you. A word someone may say will suddenly recapture a time, an hour, a day that brings him back as clearly as though he were still here and fills you with the feeling that he is always near. For if you keep those moments, you'll never be apart, and he will live forever, locked safely in your heart.
Bye.